I don't know what your project is, but I promise storytelling is the most important part. In fact, you could say storytelling is the backbone of whatever you're working on. Short film, game project, writing a book, even YouTube videos. If there's a story to be told, there's this super important lesson. How do you get started? In the next few minutes, I'll boil it down to such a simple approach you won't be able to miss it, but so effective, you'll be miles ahead of a lot of your peers. Here's a question: what's your character thinking? I have this game project I'm working on. Let's say I have this NPC. His role is to stand at this desk and our player can talk to him. He'll have some dialogue and will ultimately move the game storyline forward, but how do I write his dialogue? Where do I start with the story? In my writing, I felt there are two main approaches. Approach 1 involves planning key plot points ahead of time and writing the story to reach these points. Approach 2 is when we ask our characters what they're thinking and we listen to what they tell us. We write the story based on the outcomes of previous events, block by block. When I started, I was all about approach number 1. This seemed most logical. I thought, this must be how all stories work. How do you know where you're going if you don't map out every little detail? This big web of how everything is connected. The problem with this method is everything can feel forced when things don't quite fit together with our character motivations, or we get inconsistencies and our characters feel detached and unbelievable. With approach 1, we're not really listening to the characters because we're too busy forcing them to get us to the next plot point. Approach 2, on the other hand, can feel more dynamic and believable. If you understand your characters, what they've been through, what drives them, there's already this natural pull, like the flow of a river. If you listen, your character will guide the story for you. Approach 2 feels as if it was all planned out, but it's not. How's this possible? If we listen to the characters and their motivations, they'll take us down a story that feels planned out because the characters' believable actions build the story, block by block. As it unfolds, it's with a sense of purpose. Again, as if every turn were planned from the beginning. It seems this way because consistent character actions create their own logical flow. Okay, so that's all nice talk, but how do we actually take approach number 2? How do we build on top of the outcomes of previous events? Let's take our NPC. We don't really have a plan for where exactly we want his conversation to take us in the game. Again, that approach can feel forced because it's not based on his motivations. So if we can't look into the future, we need to take a look at the past. We call this phase world building. World building can have a huge scope. After all, it's about building a world. This can be daunting. How do we come up with this vast backstory for everything and everyone in our game? Well, do you know everything about the world you live in? Of course not. You base decisions based on what you do know. So, what information can we start throwing at our character? Keep in mind, not everything you throw needs to stick. You might get a notebook and just start writing some stuff down. Let's say his name is Howard. Step 1 in getting to know Howard is what we call character background or character development. Basically, we need to ask some questions. Where does he come from? Motivations. What does he wake up and try to bring to pass over time? Fears, desires. This includes his personal history. Think about what he knows about the world, what he doesn't know, things he thinks about himself, things he might fail to recognize in himself. What's Howard's deepest, darkest secret? Ask all the questions you can. And step 2 is where we introduce a scenario. Place Howard in a specific scenario, in our case, relevant to the game setting. Let's say Howard runs this little scrap shop and he's done some dishonest dealings with other characters in the game. One of those characters shows up to the shop at the same time that we do. This situation should naturally provoke a response based on our character's background and traits. When we get to step 3, which is writing dialogue and actions, we're basically a spectator at this point. We know who this character is, and we know the scenario they're in. If you've done your work up to this point, this should really just flow. It should feel less like inventing dialogue and more like simply capturing what we feel would be said or what would happen. Now, obviously, we're making this up either way, but the point is, once you really understand your character on a deeper level and the scenario that they're in, these things should just flow a little more naturally as you come up with them. Step 4 is observe outcomes. Howard isn't alone in this world. We can take note of how his actions and words affect the game world and other characters, including, in the case of a video game, our player character. This can help inform subsequent plot developments and interactions. Remember earlier when I said approach number 2 was to write block by block? We write the story based on the outcomes of previous events. So this is the time to observe what took place in this event with our character in this scenario. And that's really the heart of this whole video. Rather than plotting out the whole story in advance, it's really all about letting your characters come alive and guide the story through their actions and decisions. By focusing on developing real, nuanced characters and placing them in compelling situations, you allow the narrative to unfold organically. This approach not only creates a more engaging and believable story, but also makes the writing process itself more dynamic and intuitive, and in my opinion, just a whole lot easier to get started. So whether you're writing a game like me or a short film, whatever form your own storytelling takes, I hope this gives you an idea of how you can actually get started. And not just that, but adapt a process that's much easier and puts less pressure on you as you try to develop your story. If nothing else, don't forget to ask, what is my character thinking?